Okay, I think I might be live. Hello, hello, hello. I see people coming on. This is so fun. It's so fun to have you. I'm super, super happy that this seems to be working so far. So if you're here, go ahead and just say hi in the chats. Help me find out if that is working, please. I hope you're having a wonderful Sunday. I'm having a lovely Sunday. Yesterday we had an impromptu volleyball tournament, so I was doing that all day, and you all know that that is one of my areas of spiritual growth. Hi, Sandy. Hi, Anne. So anyway, I handled it really well yesterday. If some of you got a chance to see my last blog post, it was all about how I was doing thought work on stuff that was coming up around volleyball. It's just like an ongoing challenge. But kids, I mean, right? Kate, hello, hello. It's so good to have you. Well, I am super, super excited. I, I'm hoping I'll be able to share my screen because I did want to share some visuals because today I'm going to be talking about the map of consciousness and courage frequency and the work of David Hawkins. And I do have something that a PowerPoint that I thought might be nice to share. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work, but that's okay. So I hope you are all planning to join me starting tomorrow for the Courage Challenge. I have been in and out of that section all week long, just kind of reading and rereading the content, really wanting everyone to get value in what is there. And I'm just having a lot of fun, honestly, playing around with the new features inside Mighty Networks. And I love that I can create this space for people who aren't full members to come and see what things are, come and join us for these activities and see what it's all about inside our community. So I think what I'll do is, since we are at 5 o'clock, I'm going to try and experiment with sharing my screen. So let me see. Ooh, that wasn't it. Let me see. Stop video is not what I want. Blur my background is not what I want. Thank you for your patience. Share screen. There it is. I think I'm going to be able to do this. I just now have to make sure and get everything. Yeah, I might have to. It might not be super elegant, but we're going to do it. We're going to do it. So if you just joined, I welcome. Thanks for being here. I'm Amy, and I am excited to give you all a little bit of a background on what the heck I mean when I talk about the map of consciousness and courage frequency, and why courage frequency is so special, and why we should care about courage at all as coaches. And so that's my intention for today. And I am gonna, I don't know how long we'll go, but I did want to give this background, and I'm definitely going to be posting this recording. So thank you for being here. It's really lovely to get to share this really fun activity with you all. And it's just such a joy and an honor to be able to support you. So again, today, this live stream is all about kicking off the Courage Challenge and giving you kind of a background of why I care so much about the map of consciousness and the work of David Hawkins, and why I'm using those concepts as a way to frame courage and support us in stepping into more of it for the sake of our work in the world, for the sake of the magic we have to offer, for the sake of living it to give it for our clients. So I am going to try and share my screen. Forgive me if this is a little bit clunky, but I'm going to do it, and we'll see how this goes. So, oh yeah, here we go. Okay. This is going to end up sharing this screen, but I'm going to have to turn the slideshow on. Now, as I share the screen, don't worry, this isn't going to be like a really long, boring lecture, but I do want to, first of all, give a little bit of an overview for people who don't know me, haven't really met me, or here kind of going, what the heck? So, I love this quote, by the way. We change the world not by what we say or do, but as a consequence of what we have become. And so this is a class. This is really not a class. This is a live. But the basic thing is I will share this PowerPoint for all of you who are interested in the feed. But I wanted to just share a little bit about me, introduce myself. So my name is Amy Pearson. I like to call myself a recovering approval addict with the occasional relapse. But before I just want to stop and say, can you all see this okay? Are people able to see? I see the chat. Oh, this is fun. Yay, I can even see what everybody is saying. Everybody sees it. Okay, good. Hi, Gwen. Yay. Okay, and so I like to call myself a recovering approval addict with the occasional relapse. Hi, Patrick. And that was really what I learned about myself as a Wayfinder coach, kind of living it to give it, doing my own work, is that I lived in a lot of fear around just what, having to maintain a certain image so that basically I would feel safe in the world. And that really dictated my choices and how I kind of structured my whole life. And I like to be irreverent and say that I'm a recovering approval addict now, with the occasional relapse. Although that does happen, fewer and further in between, thanks to, all the work we do on ourselves, showing up for ourselves with courage and being really curious about the triggers that kind of give us a sense of what the heck, where we still need to give ourselves more love. And that has been my process. And that's why inside North Star Coach Mentoring, which I have a really hard time pronouncing, we're focusing on mind clutter. And you are all who are in my community know that I just keep hammering away at that idea that, the triggers are really our source of power. Because when we can get curious about those, they lead us to the other side of that, where we are more resilient, where we are bigger, faster, stronger. So anyway, I'm a coach. I'm a master coach. I'm an instructor. Yeah, and I've written things for different places. You can see that here. I have been on podcasts. I'm writing a book called Forgiving Amy. And I also have coined some things called, one thing is the forgiveness process, which that'll be something we're going to be talking about next month in North Star Coach Mentoring. I'm also a dream analyst, and I teach on behalf of some really cool dream instructors, including Michael Sheridan. And so, yeah, that's a little bit about me. Let's see if I can get this thing to keep scrolling. Okay, here we go. Now, who is David Hawkins? Basically, this slide has a lot of text on it. The basic thing I want you to understand is that David Hawkins, who crossed over in 2012, I believe, so he's no longer alive, but he is someone who is a big deal. I mean, this guy has been honored for his work as a physician. He's had many accomplishments. Groundbreaking work in orthomolecular psychiatry. I don't even know what that means, but he was, he's worked with Nobel laureates. He's a big deal. And he wrote a book called Power versus Force. And so that was his pioneering work. What does he talk about in Power versus Force? He talks about the idea that there are certain energies, and those energies can map to certain frequencies, and certain energies carry with them sort of power, and certain energies carry with them force. And by force, what I would say is it basically means that we are kind of pushing, it's like you're swimming against the stream. Power is this idea that things are win-win and you're going with the flow, whereas force is like you're creating more resistance. And so in our lives, depending on where we anchor, we are creating situations where we're either in our power or we're forcing things. It's this energy of control. It's a lose-lose or a win-lose proposition. And so here I've got some examples of that. So force is intrinsically incomplete and therefore must constantly be fed energy. Power is complete within itself. It needs nothing. Force is insatiable, constantly consumes. Power energizes, nurtures, gives, inspires. Force is win-lose, lose-lose. End justifies the means type of mentality. And power is win-win. Force polarizes, power unifies. Force, enemies created, defenses required. Power is unity, harmony, and compassion. Can everybody see why this is important right now in our world? I mean, come on, right? And so this is why this work, to me, really changes everything when we start to shift our perspective into why do we want to operate from power versus force. And so kind of continuing on, what David Hawkins found through his research, and he is a guy that kind of combines spirituality and science, is that the quality of consciousness can be objectively measured. And so this is the visual that I was really excited to share with everybody. And this is basically what he calls, this is one way of kind of characterizing the map of consciousness. So we see here on the left, you've got power and you've got force. In the very center there, right smack dab in the center, is the energy of courage. So why courage? Why do I get so excited about this idea of courage? Courage is what he maps it at as a frequency of 200. And so every one of these energies, you see shame at the very bottom, all the way up to enlightenment at the top, they map to a certain frequency. And I want to just share a quick kind of disclaimer here that it's not about some emotions are good and some emotions are bad. I am really grateful for every single emotion that I encounter, because those emotions carry with them wisdom and they carry with them information. And so I believe that every emotion is incredibly sacred and important. And it's really not a linear thing, because we're kind of just like in the change cycle, right? We're popping around all the time. But the question we want to ask ourselves is, where do we tend to anchor? Where do we tend to kind of live? And so if we find ourselves really kind of camping out in energies like anger or fear or shame, it's not a value judgment. And honestly, I have spent probably the majority of my life camped out in very, very low, if we're talking about the map of consciousness, energies that are underneath, below the frequency of courage. And honestly, I want to be honest about that. I'm actually pretty darn grateful for that, because it's basically showed me so much that it allows me to be here 52 years old sharing this with all of you, is because I've been able to experience all those frequencies. I've really feel like I'm living the map, right? I've taken a broad tour of many of these frequencies, and I've known them intimately. And so, but if we can get to this frequency of courage, that is when everything changes. So you can see here that when you're kind of camping out in frequencies under the level of courage, you can see here on the right side, there's this triangle where it talks about kind of what the experience is. And so fear, let's see, grief is kind of hard to see, apathy, guilt, and shame, those are really energies that keep us really stagnant. Now, once we start to pop into energies like desire or anger or pride, it's interesting, because those energies, though they still are in the realm of force in that they aren't creating win-wins or flow propositions, they are still energizing. And so many of us often find that we will, the anger will get us up out of bed, right? It'll get us moving. It'll get us taking action, right? It can be a very mobilizing energy. But the problem is, if any of you, like me, have ever kind of taken action from the energy of anger, and I've always had to struggle kind of with that energy. That one has been tough for me. I feel like I have a lot of fire in my chart astrologically, and also I've just kind of had a sort of love-hate, maybe just a hate-hate relationship with anger. It's not one that I have really, and also I think just because of my own childhood and what has been modeled to me, anger has been a difficult one, and I definitely have struggled with that one. But I know, like, taking action, even though it's more mobilizing, to act when you're in that energy of anger, it doesn't create those win-win things. So like if you've ever like tried to have an argument with someone or a conversation with someone and you're in anger, or if you've ever shot off an email and you're in anger, or you've tried to communicate with your children in anger, it doesn't work out well, does it? At least it doesn't for me. And so I always have to remind myself that acting from the energy of anger, even though it is more mobilizing, it doesn't create it's not me operating from a place of true power. So what we want to do is we want to work with our energy so that we can get to that frequency of courage. Because what can happen is that a lot of us, if we're camped out in some of these lower frequencies, what can happen is those frequencies are very energetically dense. They're heavy. And so they tend to weigh us down. And what happens is we get stuck in this loop. And so if you've ever been angry and then you've been ashamed for being angry because you acted out and maybe it didn't go well, but then you felt guilty and then you were like, oh, why do I even bother? Then you're in apathy. It's sort of like, it's really easy for us to kind of just cycle in this kind of lower frequency loop. And so when we can really be intentional and work with our energy to get into the energy of courage, that is when all things change. This is when we start to act from a true place of power. And so that is what this challenge is all about. And so let's keep kind of looking at the stuff. And so, oh, by the way, I mean, some of this we don't necessarily need to hang out at too long, but David Hawkins uses kinesiology, just like if you're familiar with Martha, she used to like to talk about the arm trick, where it's basically the study of how the muscles respond to different stimuli. And the idea is that when something is true or life supporting or aligned, your energy is strong. And that's why if you do the arm trick, often, are you all familiar with this? Have you heard Martha talk about this? She used to talk about it all the time and she'd demonstrate it. Yeah, so basically you're stronger when you push down and you're thinking a thought that is in alignment with courage frequency or above. Yeah, muscle testing, exactly. And then if you're thinking of something and it's not in alignment with the courage or above, your muscles will go weak. And so that is how David Hawkins started to work with the map of consciousness, and to start calibrating certain emotions. And what he found was that this is how he created the map, is that, yeah, I can't say it, but basically there are other ways besides the arm trick. One of the ways that I do is the body sway. And so like a lot of times I will do this, or this is yes for me, and this is no. And I use this quite a bit actually with dream analysis to check to see if whether I'm analyzing a symbol correctly. And so there's different ways to do it, but the important thing to understand is that it can also, our own accuracy depends on where we are on the map of consciousness. So if we're stuck in shame or guilt or fear, it's very difficult for us to use this technique accurately. So that's something to keep in mind. And it makes a lot of sense to me, because if you're hanging out in those lower energies, you're not actually aligning energetically with power, your true place of power, what is true, and your channel gets really messed up. Your ability to see and perceive from a place of power is compromised. So it makes a lot of sense to me. All right, and so I want to share, these are kind of fun. So based on the work of David Hawkins, he says that 85%, and this is why our work is so powerful, by the way. This is why so many of us as coaches, it's like we're always like, oh, it's a crowded marketplace, or, blah, 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 blah. Well, 85% of the world's population calibrates at below 200. This is why our work is so powerful. Here's the other amazing thing about the map of consciousness. So I showed you the kind of the scale, and what's really interesting is that the jump from one energy to the next, it's not just, shame is at 20 and love is at 500. And it's not like, I don't know if I'm going to describe this well, but it's not like you're stepping up a ladder. It's kind of like earthquakes, like an 8.5 is logarithmically more powerful than a 5.0 or a 3.0. It's like that. And so this is why David Hawkins was able to find that the energy of a single individual who calibrates at 500, which is love frequency, counterbalances 750,000 individuals below 200. So just take a second there. This is why I think Gandhi said, you have to be the change you wish to see in the world. I never really understood that until I started to really study consciousness, is that it makes sense now that it's so important for us to be showing up again and again and again, courageously being very honest about where we are and what our triggers are, and really diving into that, because the more that we can clear ourselves and get to the other side and reach a place of, I guess, relief that happens when we've done our own self-coaching or we receive coaching, is that we're literally raising our consciousness. I really believe that when we start by just being super honest about what thoughts am I believing, and really sitting down and taking the time out of your day to just be journaling, doing the work, or reaching out and saying, hey, will you coach me around this? I'm really struggling with this one thought that's creating a lot of stress in my body. That is courage frequency. And then, if you're able to actually get to a place of even more relief once you've done the work, which is how I kind of gauge the effectiveness of my self-coaching sessions, is that I've actually gotten to a place of a little bit of relief. Then you're bumping yourself up the map of consciousness, and then your results, you're just changing your timeline. You're literally stepping into a more empowered timeline. It's like, I just see it as like timeline jumping. And so the majority of our pets, which, by the way, there's Allie, she's my sidekick, they are above 250. And so it would make a lot of sense that we love being around them. Every human at the moment of conception has a calibrated level of consciousness. Each of us has a composite energy field. And that's really, I think, what we're anchored in. And it doesn't mean that it's forever. Calibration of consciousness is basically this idea of you have to be unattached to the results. So that's why sometimes if you're like, what frequency am I anchoring in? A lot of times it takes a neutral party to help you to determine that. Spoiler alert, I'm creating a tool to help you to work with the map of consciousness in really, really interesting ways, including mapping your own and getting some support in bumping yourself up. So stay tuned for that. Okay, so our overall energy field determines how we see the world. So this is really important. And I posted something inside the feed of the Courage channel for you to get a Courage challenge for you to get a sense of how this plays out. I'm not going to spend a ton of time going through every single energy. But so what I did though in this PowerPoint is I gave some points, I guess, to help you understand what each of these levels, I guess, how it impacts your way of seeing and being really in the world. And it's really interesting because, by the way, if you ever wonder, if there is such a thing as objective reality, that we all see the world in some way, I think this is probably why we struggle right now in the world, is that a lot of us are struggling because we can't understand why other people don't see things the way we do. And there's a lot of polarization and fighting around, one person believes this or sees this and another person sees it that way. And it's creating a lot of, the polarization. But if you think about reality and the idea that there's one reality, just take a second here and try this. So I want you to just close your eyes for a second and think I'm going to say 2 words, and I want you to visualize what you see right away. Okay, so I'm going to give you the 2 words. You ready? Everybody ready? I'm trying to make this interactive. All right. So the 2 words are barking dog. Okay. Barking dog. Those are the words. So everybody, if you would go ahead and post, give us a sense of what you saw when I gave you the word barking dog. By the way, this is ginger beer. This is my favorite drink of all time. It's ginger beer. Barking dog. Yeah, what do you see? Like, what do you visualize when I say barking dog? Do you see a corgi that's like on a leash next to somebody walking on the street? That's what I see. It's a corgi. They're so cute. They're like so low to the ground, and they're like little fluffy wiener dogs, but they're bigger. And I see this corgi barking. What do other people see? Okay, Sandy says, I see a cartoony looking angry dog. Patrick sees my black my black lab Finn. Kate sees a barking dog with saliva dripping from their muzzle. Ooh, right? And so that's the idea, is that we're all seeing that when I say something that you might consider very neutral, barking dog, we're all picturing something very unique based on our unique experience, life, how we've encountered dogs in the past. And so our experience is going to influence the way we perceive our world. And so along those lines, Scott sees a happy dog. Along those lines, where you anchor or where you're camping out on the map of consciousness is going to impact how you see the world. And then based on how you see the world, because we are all familiar as Wayfinder life coaches with the 4 categories of human experience, right? How we see it basically is how we're going to, and how we think about it, and it creates certain emotions that lead to certain behaviors. So for example, if I say, hey, let's see, Kate saw this very saliva dripping dog with a muzzle. If I say, hey, Kate, by the way, come over to my house and don't worry about my barking dog, Kate's gonna be like, I don't know about that. I'm not sure about that. But if I were to say to Scott, hey, guess what? I come on over to my house and don't mind my barking dog, Scott's likely going to have a very different experience anticipating what that interaction is going to be like with my dog. So along those lines, what I want to do is I kind of want to show how this plays out. Okay, so we're going to skip through these, but I promise you, I will share this PowerPoint so you can all kind of get into this and take some more time with it. Oh, and this goes very much along with the idea of the Heisenberg principle, which I believe is quantum physics, if I'm correct. I may not be, but it's based on the work of Werner Heisenberg, who says that the act of measuring or observing at the quantum level changes what's being observed. So just like measuring an electron changes its behavior, the level of consciousness you bring to a situation shapes the outcome. So we're literally playing in what I think of as really the quantum. It's like we're timeline jumping. So when you're in fear, you're seeing threats. When you're in courage, you see possibility. When you're in love, you see coherence and expansion. And so what I want to do is I want to think about this from the lens, like if as coaches, this is the lens that shapes how we see reality. And so it's not anything for us, like I have been in these energies as a coach. This has played out I'm going to share how this plays out, because I don't want this to be anything having to do with like making you feel crappy, because all of this is about kind of working with our energy in intentional ways. And so, for example, I have been triggered. So like, this is how it plays out. And by the way, I posted this inside the feed of the Courage channel. Challenge. But basically like shame. If you were in shame frequency, you would see your business likely as pathetic. You're not cut out for it. Who do you think you are? That's shame. Guilt. It's my fault I'm not further along. I hear that one a lot. I should be further along, right? There's a lot of them here, but apathy, what's the point? I hear that one a lot from coaches. It's like, nothing I do will work. The market is saturated. How many of us hear that? The market is so crowded, right? Why do I even bother? Fear or grief. My dream is slipping away. I've been here. I could give you a little story of every single one of these levels. I remember when I was sitting in front of my computer, looking at a blank calendar on my desktop. And I was like literally thinking, I'm going to give up and I'm going to go see if I can get a job over at Starbucks down the street. And I remember feeling so much grief, and that sadness and grief of like this idea, very like visceral idea in that moment of letting go of my dream made me so sad that I just couldn't do it. I was like, if it's going to make me that sad, then I know I'm supposed to keep going. So I inadvertently transformed my grief into courage. So, but desire, man, I've been at that one, oh man, I've been at that one a lot. It's like, I want 100 signups, right? I want, blah, blah, blah. And that, again, it's like, that's more energizing, at least, right? When we're in desire, it's like, we're energized at least to take action because we've got, these desires to work on. The problem with me was that when I was working from this energy of desire in my coaching practice, was that it became more about ego. It was like I was in desire because I wanted the numbers so that I could feel better about myself, basically. That's how it played out for me anyway. So I wasn't like the energy of everything I was putting out. And this is what I think happens, is that if we aren't able to get ourselves into courage frequency when we're working on our business, we are working on our business and we're expending a lot of energy, but we're not working from a true place of power. And so our results are not going to be, we're not going to have the impact that we want. And so this is why, again, getting ourselves intentionally to this place of courage is really, really important. And we can do that by being really intentional about how we choose to see our world. And it doesn't mean that these discouraging thoughts don't come through, because we're human and they come through. But what can we do to get ourselves shifted into courage? And that's what the Courage Challenge is about. And that is my intention. And we're going to do it together, right? We're going to lift each other up, which is beautiful. And that is putting us above courage already. So neutrality, a lot of times people are shocked that neutrality is above 200, but neutrality is going to put you in a place of power. It's like neutrality is the energy of not being attached to outcome. And there is something very powerful when you're not attached to outcome. And more what I see is that when I'm in like this energy of neutrality or willingness, or actually I think it's more acceptance. It's this idea that everything is going to be okay, because not only am I going to learn something from it, and that's going to help me to do something better the next time, which is very square 3 in the change cycle. But it's also this idea that I know that everything's going to be okay. I know that ultimately everything is for me. And that's kind of something that we like to say. We like to say that, but I don't know how many people really believe that. And I have found that the more that I act from a place of courage or above, the more I get evidence. It's like I put more evidence in my backpack that proves to me that everything is for me and everything is okay. And so you just start to see what changes the different timelines that we embark on when we can step into these different energies with intention. So anybody, what are your thoughts? Everybody buying this? How is this sitting with, is this the first time you've heard this? Is this new? I'd love to hear from a few folks. I love it. I think it's when I first started to learn about the map of consciousness and figure out how to apply the map of consciousness in my own life, honestly, it changed everything for me. And so I'm so happy to share how powerful this is and share this as a resource. Okay, and so let me see if there's anything else here. There's a letting go technique that David Hawkins writes about, which I'm going to be sharing in the, okay, I guess that's it. That is everything that I have. I want to share this quote though. This is so beautiful and it's so inspiring to me. And what it is he says, it is a simple clinical fact that in the long run, the weak cannot prevail against the strong. That which is weak falls of its own accord. And so basically, I'm getting chills. Like I have full on, like, I don't think you can see them, but I do have goosebumps. Because what this means is that the world is not going to shit, okay? It looks like that right now. But what really is happening is that we are learning as a collective how to drop into some of these higher, to be able to see things from a higher frequency of consciousness. And the more of us who do that, remember that statistic that David Hawkins shared, is that the more of us that can align from inside these higher levels of consciousness, we are going to counterbalance hundreds of thousands of people. And this is where being a coach becomes so powerful because we have the tools. And so using this as really our incubator, our business, by this, I mean our business as this incubator for us to practice courage frequency so that, yes, we can see how this unfolds for us inside our own business, but then see how this becomes a beautiful ripple. And that's ultimately, I think, if I were to say what my ultimate why is, I'm really here to change the entire course trajectory of the planet. Okay, so not to get too lofty, but so that to me though, it's really this idea, you know, we like to talk about love and, you know, oh, love and, you know, Valentine's Day and the Hallmark cards and all of that, romantic love. But if you really start to think about what does it mean to really step into the quality and the frequency of love, it is logarithmically more powerful than these lower emotions of fear, of shame, of hate, of anger, of blame, right? The frequency of courage is the jumping off point to some of the most powerful energies that allow us to become magnetic in a way that changes everything. And so that is what I wanted to say today. That's my live stream. I'm going to stop share here. So that was cool that I got to use the share and it worked. But I just wanted to see if anybody, yeah, it's like science and woo, right, Scott? It's like scientific woo. Anybody have any questions about any of this? And I am going to be putting some resources, things to read up in the feed so that people can get into some of the stuff by David Hawkins. This is Power versus Force. My favorite, though, if you're new to David Hawkins' work, let's see. This is my favorite right here. That is kind of this one. If you're someone who loves science, this is a great one because there's a lot here with some of the science. I mean, he goes into all kinds of stuff that is very scientific that felt a little bit above my pay grade. But then towards the second half of the book was where I started to really feel like I was able to really resonate with the content and really start to get what he was trying to say. But this one is lovely. I love this one. And it's funny because it's just like I have, I dog-eared it. I've written in it. It's just like, it is said that even reading the work of David Hawkins has the power to drop you into a higher level of consciousness and anchor there. I read this book with the intention of spiritual awakening and service to humanity, April 27th, 2021. That's when I first read this book. This is just, I love this book, and it really changed everything for me. I read it during a time when I was really lost and discouraged about what was going on in humanity. Kate says, I so appreciate this community, and for someone walking on a road a little ahead of me. It's like a pack of goose traveling. One in front creates a win for those behind. Oh, stop it, Kate, I'm gonna cry. Ah. Yay, Sandy says, I'm very happy to be venturing into the spiritual and the woo. Yeah, I mean, I would say that I'm a very pragmatic person. By that, I mean that I'm very interested in spirituality and woo, to the extent that it helps create actual change in my life that is for the better. It's like, I don't really have time for it in the abstract, but if I find that it has a very practical application in my life, then I'm here for it. And in fact, I have found that my being someone who practices spirituality regularly in my own way, not in maybe a conventional way. I have created my own hybrid approach to spirituality. I see the practical benefits all the time in terms of, my ability to be in more courage, share my gifts, just be more patient, less triggered, more sovereign, just be more loving towards people in general. I mean, that's such a cool, I guess, outcome of the spiritual stuff, is to be able to feel genuinely loving and happy for other people. Because I would say that because of my own trauma and background, for many, many years, I saw other people as a threat. And I think I'm not alone in that. I think many of us, I mean, obviously, there are people out there who, they're anchored in lower states of consciousness, and that's why they behave the way they do. And that actually helped me understand, a lot of why people are the way they are, is to understand this idea of consciousness. And in fact, there's a really great kind of, I had broken down what the levels of consciousness look like, potentially for coaches in the different frequencies. But I believe it's in Power versus Force. David Hawkins does that, but he breaks it down in terms of how someone might view someone who's homeless. And so, someone who is anchored in shame would see someone who is homeless potentially as kind of a piece of shit that is taking up space and shouldn't be there. And then someone who sees a homeless person through the lens of love has a very different approach towards someone who is homeless on the streets. And so it just gives us a sense of kind of how we see other people. And now I'm able to see other people in a way that allows me to be in my heart. And that's really what we're talking about, is how do we drop from here into our heart? And that is kind of a parallel in terms of why this work is so important, is really about how do we touch some of those energies, like being in the heart, that I think we've been pretty programmed to not value. And it's interesting, because if you really do start valuing the energy of being in our heart, we see that that's where the love frequency lives, and that's where her power lives. So it's worthwhile. It's worth it. Any other questions about any of this at this point? I love it. I love all of you here. Any thoughts to share? Any of you familiar? Or do any of you come with familiar? Like, do any of you like to read David Hawkins? Or no, that's okay, Gwen. No questions are needed. I'm just glad you're here. Anybody familiar with the work of David Hawkins? I don't even know how I ended up finding David Hawkins, honestly. Oh wait, I think I might actually. Oh yeah. I was gosh, it was 2021. Yeah, Power versus Force, Patrick. Yeah, letting go is a great one too. So letting go technique, Anne has read him because of me suggesting him. Oh, cool. Yay. Yeah, I do end up mentioning him quite a bit in my classes. And I'm teaching the business series again. I can't remember which group it is, but they're going to get a lot of David Hawkins from me. Scott says I picked up his book after I recommended it. Oh, good. Okay. Yeah, so this is going to be more of David Hawkins, but we're going to do some practical application. Oh, yay. So I guess I'm kind of a map of consciousness evangelist. But yeah, and that's really what I think we're doing when we're using the work. When we take people through the 4 questions and the turnarounds, ultimately what we're doing, if you really like, if you're taking a client through the work, pay attention, because usually what happens is, and this is so true in square one, because square one is very dense, is that people are anchored in those lower frequencies, those very dense frequencies. And then when you use the questions of the work, and you help them explore kind of what would my life be like if I weren't attaching to this stressful thought, it ultimately puts them into courage, not only courage because they're looking at it with you, but also neutrality. So a lot of times my clients will say, I just feel neutral, when I ask them, what's it like, navigating this circumstance without the thought? And a lot of times they'll just say, well, I guess I just feel neutral. And so it's interesting. It's very interesting. But yeah. So Courage Challenge starts tomorrow. Our first lesson will be kind of not really a lesson, but more of a challenge and an exercise. And so that'll be dropping. It'll be live tomorrow. I've got it on a timer for each day. And I just want to encourage you all that this is a community here inside the Courage Challenge. I know we're also inviting people to join us that are not inside North Star Coach Mentoring. And so the more the merrier. Everyone is so welcome to be here. I just love being able to share this content. Some of you are not Wayfinder life coaches either. And so if you are like, if I'm using language that you're like, I don't understand what you mean, please feel free to post a question. And I will be happy to, or one of us can be happy to share kind of what we mean when we talk about the change cycle, or the work by Byron Katie is a wonderful resource. But yeah, we're going to be dropping everything. The first challenge day is tomorrow. And so I've really tried and had the intention to create content that'll be super quick. It'll be super fast, just pop in, read it, maybe have a journal out there, do some journaling. And then if you want to practice, a very real way to practice your courage muscle is to just post, and there's no pressure or no expectation, no judgment if you do or do not. Whatever, but if you do want to share what's coming up for you, I just want to welcome you to do that inside the comments for each day. And also the other thing I was going to say is that I really value that we're creating a community that, just like in a coaching session, we're cultivating trust and safety by just allowing people to show up as they are. And if you're in shame frequency, brother, sister, I get it. I have been there. And so it's really just come as you are. And so that's really what we're doing here, is creating a safe space for anyone. And by the way, if you don't identify as a brother or sister, I also want you to know that you're welcome here as well. And so anyway, we start tomorrow. And I was going to say, is there anything else? Oh yeah, on the feed, I posted a poll, and that's a good way to get started, is just to be thinking about, like, what is the trickiest thing about courage for you? It's a multiple choice, but many of you might have something different going on. And so feel free, there's an other category. And so for me these days, sometimes the tricky thing is really taking action because I worry about like, what's going to happen? I get into the future. Like, is this going to create a lot of work for me? Am I going to have the support I need? Is this going to end up being something that feels aligned ultimately down the road? I get into these future types of scenarios, and then that keeps me from taking action. It gets me in fear frequency. And so that's one thing I think. And the other thing too is that I worry about, for me personally, the tricky thing for courage right now, another thing is that I am someone who gets a lot of ideas, and some of you know this about me, and I really have to be brave about taking a step back. And just as an example, and I think Emily, you might be here. Yes, I see you in the participants list. Emily is someone who's been helping me with my business for a jillion years, and she was part of my business very, very early in my early days, and she really knows what I'm talking about when I talk about operating my business from a place of pride. Is one of the things that happened in my own on my own path, is that I got into a lot of pride. I got into a lot of, even though I was creating good content and I was helping people, I think I also hadn't healed enough to not make that be about my own worth. And so I got a little lost at times. But basically what I'm trying to say, the point being, is that I ended up getting myself a little over my head this month with my enthusiasm, and decided I was going to not only launch the Courage Challenge, but I was also going to come out with a class called the Thought, Feeling, Circumstances Masterclass. And I was starting to feel really stressed. I wasn't having as much fun. And Emily and I had a conversation where it's like, let's just bag it. We don't have to do it this month. That's like no big deal. And, that took a lot of courage for me, because I think for much of my life, I think I've lived by the limiting thought that I have to be working really hard in order to be of value. And so that one I exercised my courage muscle by just bagging that, not doing it this time. It's going to be a fantastic class, and I will definitely be offering that in the future. And I've got it's almost finished in terms of slides and stuff too. But yeah, so that's how some of the tricky parts about courage for me. So maybe take some time with that and think about that and how that's showing up for you right now. Just thinking about that puts you in courage frequency. And then what else do I want to say? I am going to be coming out with a surprise at the end of this challenge that I think is going to knock some of your socks off. Maybe I shouldn't talk it up so much, but at the end of this challenge, I'm going to be unveiling something cool. Emily, you don't even know what this is yet, so buckle your seatbelts. All right, so I think that's it. I'm so grateful for you all for being here. Thank you for joining me, and I will see you tomorrow inside the challenge. Take good care, everyone. Happy Sunday. Yes, it is fun. I love that. All right. Talk soon, everybody.